Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Flip those houses.
Yes, episode number 187. Historically and genuinely, the greatest weakness in investors and how to effortlessly stop it.
Cut it out.
Stop it.
Knock it off.
When most real estate investors start out, each inevitably goes through being nervous. No. Or completely terrorizing themselves into anxiety oblivion about talking to sellers. How's that for words?
You have to talk to somebody?
Yeah. Not to mention giving the seller a number much less than the seller's asking price. Oh, the seller wants $200,000 and you want to offer him $105,000? Yeah, that'll make you nervous. What do you think?
Knees knocking nervous.
Too often, the investor goes into defensive thinking. How's that for words? Defensive thinking about what the seller would say before the investor asks the questions.
Gotta be ready. Gotta be ready. Gotta have a list. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, what if he... Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let me write that down.
The obsession about the answer panic will often paralyze the investor so much he or she will go into total research mode and try to study and study and study and study and study and okay. all the correct defensive thinking and behavior the seller will throw back once the investor throws a question or offer out there. Wow, that's a mouthful.
You got it, though. Mm-hmm. You got it.
This fear of being noticeably nervous is the exact weakness every investor is trying to avoid and eliminate so things go smooth. Peter, you're like 150 years old right now.
Well, between my wife and I, we're hitting 140. Take it easy there. Take it easy there.
Your entire life, how often do things actually go smooth all the time?
Why do you want them to go smooth all the time?
Right? So why does everybody want things to go smooth?
Do you want no adventure in your life?
Exactly.
That's called no game. You got nothing to do then. Why get up in the morning?
Right. When I was in the car business, I had an old guy teach me. His name was Lefty, by the way. Because he would crawl under the car and clock a car back in the 40s and the 50s with his left arm, right? And he was a good guy. He was a pretty smart guy. And he says, Billy, if you're not losing on cars, you're not buying enough.
Oh.
In other words, if I bought 10 cars and if I didn't lose on one or two of them, that means I wasn't pushing my limits and buying enough.
Yeah.
Now, I don't necessarily think that should be that way in the house business, but it's a good lesson. All right?
Yeah.
In this podcast, we're going to help you overcome your fear of talking to sellers, plus give you exact formulas that will turn your panic buttons off like the kill switch on your lawnmower. Fear of talking to people.
I don't want to tip, because I don't know what you're going to get at in this. You know, folks, I don't know where he's going with this, but I'm stuck on one thing you said, and I'm not going to say much, I'm going to reserve till you get at it. But why does somebody have to be defensive anyways?
Right.
So keep going. Let's see what happens. That's what's tripped in my mind, like, why do you have to be defensive?
So this is kind of a sequel to last week's episode, which was episode number 186, and we called it Real Estate Due Diligence, When and How.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of a sequel to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you know me, it's a little philosophical, okay? Because I feel like there's so much of the business, of this business, the creative real estate business, that is too individualized. And man, I got to tell you, I have been on a mental, what is the word I want?
Journey.
Yeah, it's not even a journey. It's like
quest.
It's something I'm not sure what to name it because it's like too deep. But I find myself way too often lately thinking why we're not organized.
Yeah.
Why are we acting like acting like individuals? The reason why we are not able to buy more houses and be considered legitimate,
right,
is because we're not organized. That's the only reason why. There's not an association, and there's too many individuals that are like working out of their backseat of their car. You ever read the book, The Lincoln Lawyer?
No.
Oh, it's a great
Lincoln?
book. Yeah. The
like
Lincoln Lawyer.
Like the car?
His office was the back of a Lincoln.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic book. It's an easy read. It's something you read while you're at the beach, Peter.
Oh, yeah, you would. Not me.
What would you read at the beach?
Guitar player.
Oh, Jesus. All right. So,
or real estate books.
Yeah, okay. So, I'd like to start off this podcast with a news flash. Okay?
This just in.
Yes. You can make the noise.
I was thinking we should have sound effects.
Yeah, that's all Emma needs to see us. What are you? You're giving us faces over there like, oh, now what, Dad? If you're making offers without butterflies, this is a news flash. Yeah. If you're making offers without butterflies in your stomach, your offers are too high.
You know, no matter what you say on these podcasts, it just keeps bringing me back to like the relationship, how this compares to a relationship, like dating.
Right.
Like you want to get a house or you want to get a girl or a boyfriend, right?
Right.
And like if you don't feel butterflies.
Well, I don't want to get a girlfend.
No,
I don't even want a wife.
Pam wouldn't like that.
So I already told her if something happens to her, there will not be another.
Oh, he's done already.
Done.
Oh man, now who's old?
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm 150 years old. But you're right. It is a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, like you don't ask if you're not having butterflies, you're not asking the girl you really want to get. You know, the really pretty, smart, nice one.
I have made thousands and thousands of offers.
The girls?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm sorry. Go back.
And to this day, I get those nervous feeling in my stomach when I give a cash offer. I have not overcome that ever.
Yeah. Well, that's actually encouraging that you're human and it's okay if that's just how this thing goes. Like we're not supposed to arrive at some plateau of, hi, I feel like Superman, I'm invincible. You know, no, it's not. It's not real. Real life is real life. You win and lose.
Right. But I'm not talking about that type of nervous in this podcast. I'm not talking about. That's not what I want to talk about because I never, ever, ever want it to go that way. I don't want it to go away. That nervous, like, you know, Pete, you have a $200,000 house. I want to give you $105,000. I don't want that to go away because if it does, then my gauge of my price is right is not there.
Yeah. Well, right? you're really doing it kind of on purpose, aren't you?
Yeah.
So it's
most of the time, my cash offer is not a cash offer.
Yeah. It's a reality check.
Yeah, it's
right?
Well, it's to start off my comparative offers.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, we've talked about this in past podcasts. So if you want 200,000, you're thinking we can negotiate maybe 5 or 10,000. Some people are a little bit more realistic; they'll go 15 or 20,000.
Right.
Because they're like they understand the cost of the sale. So they're like, well, if we don't use a realtor, I'd be willing to accept.
Sure.
And they give you their number.
They take 6% off.
But that is not a number that you can pay cash on. So if you start talking to them about taking monthly payments and they think they can get 180, 185, 190, 195, they're in that realm, why would they want to take $1,500 a month?
Right.
When they can get 180 or 190.
Right.
So you have to kind of like crack the ice on that. So you have to let them know, okay, so if you want cash, I'm going to give you 105 or whatever the number is. Right. And they're like, oh, my mortgage is like 140. Right. So you get that out of their heads so that you can get them into a different ballpark and start playing games. Not playing games, but playing the game.
Right.
You know, which is, here's the other things I can do.
Yeah.
And it's not, and I don't want to make that like it's, like you're being passive aggressive or you're being undermined it or it's some trickery or anything like that. It's not that. It's just human nature, because if you don't get that out of the way, I have found that it's almost impossible to talk about giving them monthly payments. Right?
Well, everything's comparative.
Yeah.
I mean, you learn a piece of information, like compared to what? You give a number compared to what?
Well, I'll give you just a classic example. So Friday night I was at the smoke shop. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. It was an unusual situation, but I was there. So my buddy that I have dinner with all the time, Steve, he's like, he'll call me in the morning. What do you want to do tonight? What do you do? He always does the same thing. What are you doing tonight?
Is it Friday?
Yeah, like, is this a trick question? But it's just him. He's got a...
Is your memory bad?
Him and I are two peas in a pod. We both have strange humor. So I'm like, I was thinking about something different tonight, because he likes Italian food. So I'm like, let's go to Outback. Let's get a steak. I want to get a steak. When's the last time you ate meat? Because usually he'll be like, I had a hamburger last night, or I had a piece of steak last night. I don't want to do that, right? But this Friday, which was last Friday, he said, let's do that. So my point of the story is, when I call and say I would like to have, I ordered his meal, because I ordered to go, and because we eat in the smoke shop while we're smoking cigars.
Yeah, because it tastes better with the fumes of cigars sticking up your nose, like steak and cigar.
Where else could you go and have dinner and have somebody blow smoke in your face while you're eating dinner?
Bill, I'm going to develop a cigar sauce. I'm going to market it to all the cigar companies.
All right, we're diverting way too much here. So my point is that they asked me, do you want a 9-ounce, a 10-ounce, or a 12-ounce? That's the point that I'm trying to make. So that's a comparative sale. Because one is, $20, one is $23, and one is $28. You know what I mean? So that's a comparative sale. So that's the reason for that whole diversion there. Sorry about that. So I'm not talking about the nervousness of making that offer, that $105,000 offer. Okay? No. The fear I'm talking about today is what to say when talking to the seller while making an offer, so they aren't pissed off at you because they think it's a bad offer. So there's a way to do that, right? So if you have listened to me for any length of time, you'll have heard me say or talk about how important scripts are, right? And this podcast is not about scripts, okay? But I'm always blown away at how investors think they can just go into a house looking to make 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand or more without ever planning out the conversation, or at least preparing for any objections, stalls, or resistance that the seller has. Because they think that they're just going to walk in the house and they're going to say da-di-da-di-da, and the seller's going to fall at their feet and they're going to say, yes, master, I'll do that.
Well, that's what it says in the book.
Yeah, it's not that way at all. But yeah, I don't want people to think that it's like you're like a used car salesman and you got to go in and trick them too.
Yeah.
So tell me this. Or better yet, I'll give you an example. This is like driving a car from New York to LA without a map or a plan. Right? You'll get there. Maybe, right? Or you hope you will. But there probably will be a lot of distractions and a lot of unexpected things, right? So most real estate investors shoot from the hip, or as we say, from the lip, and they don't have any real answers to questions. And I'm going over this because I have some coaching clients that I've been like, private coaching clients that I've been like really working on this with. And it's bizarre to me. It's like pathetically bizarre to me, like really strange in my mind that they feel like if the owner is desperate, which they call motivated, and there's a big thing that's a big thing right there. Getting those two words separated in your mind. There's the difference between desperate and motivated. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
That they can just kind of like not have a plan.
Yeah, first guy that walks through the door that offers us anything, we're taking it. Okay, sweetheart?
Right.
No.
So I don't know about you, Peter, But I know in my life, anything, I don't care what it is, and we can list them if we need to give examples, but there is nothing I can do in my life, have activity or action or something moving in the physical universe, right, that doesn't have an agreement attached to it. Right? Even just you and I talking right now, we have to have an agreement. We have to like one another, and we have to have this. We have to communicate.
We have to have some kind of basis upon which to communicate. What's the plan here? What's
So
the
what do
deal?
we agree on?
What are we trying to do?
So we agree that this podcast should be done every Thursday at 9:30 in the morning, and I don't have to call you and tell you to show up. You just show up, and if you don't, you let me know, and it's like an agreed upon thing. There's nothing. I can't. I go into a restaurant. Last night I took my sister out for dinner because she's in from out of town, and we went into a restaurant, and we had to make agreements with the waiter, like, this is what I like, and this is how I would like it. Right? You have to make an agreement with the faucet in your shower in the morning. You have to you have to get the faucet to turn on and agree to do what you want it to do. You have to have an agreement with your car when you turn the steering wheel that it's going to do certain things.
Yep.
I mean, there isn't anything that I know of in my life or on planet Earth that doesn't start with some sort of an agreement. So why would an investor go into any situation without having some idea of what type of agreements that they should present or at least work on?
Well, you need
talk about.
You need more than one. You need more than your own idea of what you want.
Right. So
right.
So that's right. So my
you can't
point
just walk
is,
in. I want this.
Right.
Good for you.
Right.
The other guy wants something else. Now what?
So agreements are two-way.
Yeah.
So it's like you and me together. It's like a communication is two-way. It's you and me together. Right? So too many times, and I'm jumping ahead here, but it's a perfect time to put it in. We're going to come back to this, so I'm not going to elaborate on this.
Yeah.
What I find with my new investors is they're all wound up about the numbers. And they go head on like a train wreck with the numbers and the deal structuring because they've studied me or other guys out there, and they're like all, colleged up, PhD on deal structuring. And they never think to handle the human side of the deal. And the agreements and just talking to somebody and finding out. I mean, think about this. Every deal that I make is like another wedding for me. It's like I'm marrying these people in most cases for 2, 3, 5 years. Things go wrong. They're calling me. I'm their go-to guy.
Yeah.
Right? Electric bills don't get paid, or water bills don't get paid, or whatever. Things happen, The neighbor complains. Somebody didn't shovel a sidewalk. They call me. We have agreements.
Yep.
And so, why would you do that? This is much like a college kid, going into a dorm with a bunch of women and saying, "I'll take that one." You know what I mean? It's like it's not like that. I mean, we tease all the time. It's like, if you could buy houses like that, you would go to Home Depot. I'll take one of those. I'll take 2 of these.
It says Home Depot.
Right.
Crap.
All right.
False advertising.
So let me explain why this is so weird to me, okay? Once you hear this piece of information, you'll understand. Okay? So the first thing I want to talk about, and we're going to do a couple pieces here, and I'm definitely in the profound school here, and maybe this podcast will not be one of our most popular, maybe it'll be the most popular, I don't know. But I didn't do it for any other reason except I have some coaching clients, and I'm gonna require they listen to this podcast because I want to do it once and for all of them. Okay?
Sure. Well, I have a sneaking suspicion, if we can understand what you're saying here, that might leak over into other parts of our lives, like ordering a meal or figuring out where to go for a date with your wife, or
right.
a lot of things, because it involves the other person.
Right.
So I bet this will help other ways too.
So in my life, it goes as simple as this. And I'm completely dumbing this down, and you don't have to accept this. But as far as I am concerned, my observation of me and people around me, because I watch them do it too, the entire world is run off of mental image pictures that you create, whether you know it or not. Some of them you consciously create, some of them they get created unconsciously without you knowing it. Okay? So every communication, every word, everything that happens in your world is motivated off of the picture that you're looking at. Whether you realize you're looking at that picture or not, it's there. Okay? And there's a whole bunch of theories about that, right? Like I said in the past, cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. He talks about the cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Hubbard talks about it in Dianetics, and there's a few other. It's not really psychology based because I don't know that psychology actually has it figured out totally. Maybe they do, but I've not seen that. Right? But the point is that there's a mental image picture. Yeah. So when you have a misunderstood word, or you're going along and there's a confusion, it's like we talked about in the last episode. It's like having a Rembrandt painting with the person and their face is missing. Yeah. It's just not a clear picture. There's some doubt in that picture, which makes it hard to communicate because you don't understand that the picture's not clear enough. And this is the reason why goals are so important with the gold boards, the people make gold boards, where they put the pictures from magazines on there.
On the refrigerator.
Right? And that's why when the clearer you can see that picture, the easier it is for you to communicate to the real world, to other people, to the physical universe, to the banker, to the blah, 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 right? So that's why that's really clear. So my point is that communication means that I need to take that picture and get it to somebody else with communication, because you can't see my picture. Only I can see it. So I need to get it over to you, whether you're 3 feet in front of me or whether you're 3,000 miles away. Right. One way or another, I got to get you to completely duplicate it or see it as if you were sitting in a movie theater watching it, like on a big screen. Okay?
That's why people say, do you see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, which, by the way, is exactly the point that I'm bringing, because what happens with those people, the reason why they say that is because they don't feel acknowledged. Yeah. Right? So the point that I'm trying to make up here, or the point I'm trying to make here is a communication is a cycle of action. You start it, you work on it or change it or use it or whatever, and then it stops. Okay? So the start is, Pete, well, let's do an example, okay? Yeah. Pete, I'd like to buy that pencil.
Why do you want to buy my pencil?
Because I'd like to buy that pencil.
Well, I'm not sure I'm ready to sell it. How much are you going to give me for it?
Okay. So I understand you want a price, but I'd like to just make the decision that I'd like to buy your pencil.
You want to buy my pencil?
I would like to buy your pencil.
Okay.
Okay. So that is where most sellers and buyers break down, because what happened in that example I just gave you is until you acknowledged me, said, okay, you gave me the answer to the question, not an answer. We call that a no answer answer. So the first time when I said, I want to buy your pencil, you said whatever, you didn't answer my question. And then I asked the question again, I want to buy your pencil. Right? And you gave me another answer, but it wasn't an answer to the question.
No, words were happening, but it wasn't really. So people think they hear words and they think they're getting answered, but they're not.
So they think that they're having a conversation, but they're not, because you're actually misdirecting the communication, and you're not giving me an answer. So until you get that exact answer, it doesn't end the cycle of action. Right? And so when I hear my students with recordings, what happens is, no, let's do it the wrong way now. So Pete,
but I just did it the wrong.
No, we're going to do it the wrong way now. Okay. So you just do what you were doing, and I'll change. I'm going to change. Okay? Okay. So Pete, I'd like to buy your pencil. Well,
when do you want to buy it?
Well, I'm not sure. I could probably do 30 days. I might need 45 days. When would you like to sell?
Well, I'm not really sure. Probably have to talk to my wife. I'm not sure.
Okay, so what would your wife say about me buying your pencil?
Well, she'd probably tell me that if it isn't the price we want, not to do it.
Okay, so what's the price that you would like?
Well, we haven't really figured that out yet.
Okay. See what just happened?
Yeah. It just goes on and on.
It goes on and on and on. And the investor gets confused.
Yeah.
And the seller gets confused because there's no resolution to the answer of the question, which is, I would like to buy your pencil.
Yeah.
I need you to make that decision first. Like, one of the first questions we ask is the house for sale?
Yeah.
Right?
You forget to ask that.
So this is really hard to explain, but my point is that the diversions of the answers to the questions gets them into this like Q&A, question and answer, back and forth. And that's actually destructive to the offer making part of the deal, because it's not a start, change, and stop. It never definitively stops. And then next thing you know, you're into, well, I could do this, or maybe I could do that, and maybe I could do this, and you start making 3 or 4 offers when they didn't get clarification to their answer immediately.
You can't go on to the next steps because that's not clear.
So this communication didn't get stopped. It wasn't a cycle, and there's many.
And you mean finished. When you say stop, you mean finished and stopped, right?
Like, so we,
not just
so basically what happened is when you say okay, in our example, we agreed.
Yeah.
So we made a mini agreement, so now I can work on the next agreement.
Piece by piece.
And it's subtle, and it's very natural when it happens or doesn't happen. But I see so many investors that do not pay attention to that because they don't understand the communication formula, which is start, change, stop, right? Or you make an origination or some sort of what's the word I want? You start it with your idea, with your mental image picture, right? But you don't fully get it duplicated. And the only way you know that the person has actually gotten your answer is when they acknowledge you. I got it. I understand it.
You know what I see when you're saying that? I'm saying 2 things. One is the other person may not be clear on their ideas. Right?
And you have to help them get through that.
Yeah, that's what I really spotted. So that's one thing, that they really don't get it. So you have to just find some way to get through.
Okay, so to that point,
right?
You have to do start, change, stop. You have to break it down, which is what I do with the guys on the podcast. We just did an internship, which kicked my ass, by the way, but because it was hard, a lot of work for us. But I broke it down to little tiny pieces so that people can understand it. So I have to get agreements. Okay, so click this button. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Acknowledgement. They got it.
Yeah.
Okay, now go to this website and do this. Oh, what website?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And it's like, so I make sure that the pictures that I'm putting out there, that I'm throwing out there, are completely understood.
And these are real pictures because you sent a workbook that Emma made with like circled, see the red thing here, push that button.
So what happens in training is that if it's not understood, where do you go with it? What happens is it props up all these other questions that don't need to be questions, because whatever their questions aren't going to happen. It's basically because you haven't made an agreement. So the other person's struggling with making that agreement with you because they don't fully understand it. They haven't grasped it. Let's do another one, okay?
But can I say the other thing that I thought? Because you talk about people being nervous. If you could finish every little part of your communication, your conversation, the overall, if you could finish every little piece of it reasonably well, and just then do the next little piece, and then the next little piece reasonably well, you wouldn't have to get nervous, would you?
That's right. And we talked about that in episode number 186, which was the due diligence of doing your real estate deals, because most people think it's due diligence is, you write your purchase and sales contract. Now you go do your homework on the deal. Well, that's correct if you're buying ugly houses from the bank.
Yeah.
Because the bank will definitely try to trick you. Okay. But the due diligence on a pretty house is these agreements that we're talking about. You have to like figure out what is the seller willing to agree to.
Mm-hmm.
What are these little things that we're talking about? And what we talked about in episode number 186 is how you do those a little at a time, until you get to the point where you're like, I feel good about this.
Yeah.
I'm not nervous about this anymore because I feel I got enough data. I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm very, very strong about this. I'm very, very, in fact, I'm overpowering on this in my real life.
Yeah.
The only reason why you're nervous, or the only reason why you're fear, and the only reason why you have anxiety is you don't have enough data. That's the only reason why. If you had the data, you could make a decision. Like Jessie, my oldest daughter, will call me and she's like, ah! And I'm like, okay, what's the next step? You can't make that decision right now, Jessie, because she'll be talking about her son or her husband or, I don't know, something at work. And I'm like, well, you don't have enough data. No wonder why you feel that way.
Sure.
You know, you feel that way because there's missing pieces to this puzzle and you can't put it together, and you're like, how could you make that decision? So you're trying to make some major decision that either costs a lot of money or is going to affect you a lot in your life, and you don't have enough pieces of the puzzle yet. Okay? So this actual start, change, stop, and getting agreements is very important. So let's just do another quick, and then we're going to move on. Okay. Sure. So let's do another one. So, you're asking $200,000 for the house.
Yeah, 200.
Okay,
yeah.
So, I want to give you $105,000. If I pay cash, I want to pay $105,000.
105.
Yeah.
How the hell you come up with that? 105. I can't do 105.
Well, see, here's what I do: is I take the ARV and I multiply it by a percentage, and then I figure out the repairs and I subtract that, and then I figure out what I have for a wholesale fee, and then I decide that if I want to, like, what my holding costs are.
What the hell are you talking about?
See what I mean?
What the hell are you talking about?
See, so it's like, so all you heard was 105.
Yeah, and the rest was like, what the hell are you talking about?
So I didn't get an agreement from you, and I kept talking. And then worst of all, I started giving you a seminar on what I learned, or I gave you a seminar on what I learned in the seminar, right? All these technical things, right?
Yeah. Which takes us a long time to learn. You can't just throw it at the guy and expect him to understand it.
So you go to a doctor with a broken knee.
Yeah.
You don't want to know how he got his degree. You just want to know how long is it going to hurt and what's next. I'm going to put a cast on your leg, and it's going to be 6 weeks, and here's what you need to do. And he tells you.
And don't describe the metacarpal and the synapse because we don't know what you're talking about.
So now let's go back to my example. So Pete, I'd like to give you $105,000 cash. Actually, I don't even do it that way. Let me do it the real way. How I do it. Well, so Pete, I know you want a cash offer, and you're looking for $200,000. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's the worst offer I can give you, and it's actually an insult. I'm going to insult you right now, okay? Because this is what I'd have to do. I can only give you like $105,000 for the property.
You could.
That's probably the best I could do. I might be able to squeeze a few extra thousand out of it, but I'm telling you that's the best I can do for cash.
Wow, that doesn't even make sense to me.
I agree with you. It doesn't make sense. But by the time I borrow the money, the cost of the money, and all the things I got to go through on my end, that's the formula. I have a formula I use, and it's proven over and over again. And honestly, I'm not trying to steal a house from you, but the point that I'm trying to make is that I have money guys that are involved with me, and if we can't cover the cost of money and all the things that go along with it, then it's not worth it for us. It's worth it. It's not worth it for you, and it's not worth it for us. So why would we do that type of a deal?
Okay.
However, if you do want $200,000, here's what I could do.
See, if you don't see this because you're not watching the video, my eyes went bing.
Yeah.
Because I heard 200,000.
So it's a comparative sale.
Yeah.
But
the
point
I like
is,
the way you explained it, though, because we can go through the whole long procedure of explaining all that for half an hour before throwing the offer. But you just said a few nice things. Well, that's just, I have formulas. I have guys that lend money. But
I got your agreement that it wasn't the best price for you.
Yeah.
Now, very often, probably 10% of my offers will get through the whole thing, and they'll be like, no, I'll just take the cash offer.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
So
but you've explained all the other offers
Yeah.
and explained that they can get 190,000 or they can get 150,000, and they're like, no, I just want to take the cash offer. But they have all the data, and we made those agreements just like what I just did with you. It was start, change, stop. We made an agreement. Okay, so that's the hardest part of the podcast. But I have two more really good pieces of this podcast that I want to talk about. Okay,
Stay tuned, folks.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's get back on the topic here of like the fear, right? So I want to give you two more comforting pieces of information. Okay. So one is every industry has 12 to 8 common rebuttals. We call them objections, stalls, or resistance. So that means every industry, I don't care, and I've taught a lot of salesmen how to be salesmen, and I'm not trying to teach you how to be a salesman, but I'm giving you this technology because it's soothing. If you want to take the stress out of any offer, here's one major way to do it, and then there's going to be another one I'm going to tell you in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm not going to explain right now. I'm going to give you both of them. But the point that I'm trying to make here is once you understand that almost every seller will ask one or multiple of these 12 to 18 questions or have these concerns, these 12 to 18 concerns. Once you know what they are up front, it is a lot easier for you to deal with because what happens is like when I go into an offer or talking to somebody about their house, I used to do it consciously. Now I do it subconsciously, and I'm thinking, I wonder if they're going to tell me something I've never heard before. I wonder if I'm going to hear something that would stump me. Because after you've heard it so many times, that's how you get.
Well, in any job, I mean, think of what job you have at home, folks. Whatever you're doing, don't you run into the same things,
Right.
the same questions, the same problems, the same whatever. So it's a small bucket. You just have to figure out what that is.
And the point that you're making, which is good, is that it's not this nebulous, like, huge
It's like
topic.
anything could happen.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there's 12 or 18 things that can happen, and once you at least label them, just labeling them first, and then knowing how to handle them is a whole nother story. And I'm going to tell you how to do that before we leave.
Okay.
Number 2, when making your offers, or any sales cycle in this case, there's only 5 steps. Okay? And you miss one, and you're cooked like Uncle Joe's hockey puck on the hockey puck hamburger on the grill in the middle of the summer. Okay? Now we all got an Uncle Joe, right? So let's talk about the 12 to 18 common rebuttals that we would hear, right? So here's how you handle that. Okay? Am I okay? I'm not getting too profound here.
No, this sounds like the right way to prepare instead of a nervous way to prepare.
Right.
Like prepare with some actual facts behind it. Like this is what actually happens.
I really just wrote this and usually I qualify it a little bit, and when I was writing it, I was like, it was a little nervous about writing it, but I think it's coming out okay. So the 12 to 8 common rebuttals that you're going to hear. Okay, so the only way to handle this is not to have me give you scripts. That is a way to get started. That is helpful, but I can't script you for everything because people are people, right? Especially because I don't know where these podcasts land. I mean, I've talked to people in Alaska. I've talked to people in Australia. I've talked to people in many other countries. So I don't know where these podcasts land. So everywhere is different. People are different, right? So I can't script for everybody because I would constantly be scripting and nothing else, right? So Here's how you do it. You have to make it your own. So the best way to do it is to make a little playbook for yourself, right? And the way you do that is you first, when you're talking to people, there's going to be things they say that you're not quite sure how you're going to answer them. Or you're going to make up an answer, which is absolutely the wrong thing to do because you're not closing deals on that. Okay, so listen to what I'm telling you, because once you get past the start, change, stop in the communication and getting and acknowledging people, you need to acknowledge people. People need to acknowledge you, and you don't go further until you get to that point. Right? If they don't acknowledge you, then you ask a lot of questions because there's a confusion, and you need to figure out what that confusion is.
Yeah, and you need to know the difference between the person says, yeah,
right,
or yeah.
Right, exactly.
And you know that. And if you see the don't fake it. Don't hope it goes away, because it's not. Because I've worked with some very smart people, and I've seen them. in a conversation, and it may be a little uncomfortable. You go, let me just let that slide by because I don't want to talk about such and such in the conversation. It is not going to go away until you say, what did you just think there? What happened? And just deal with it. It'll go away.
Right. If you don't pierce somebody's social veneer, you're not making a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not going to last. It's too shallow.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So going back to these, so when you get one of those rebuttals or one of those concerns or objections, or they're stalling, like I need to, they come up with an idea like I need to talk to my wife, or then you need to write that down.
Right.
Exactly the way they said it. And here's what you're going to find. You're going to find that most sellers will ask that question. It's not just one seller.
Mm-hmm.
There's not like some special question. Now, that's going to happen periodically, and that's another story. But for right now, you just want to get those down.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, you start writing them down. Now, once you have a few of them, 4 or 5 of them, 3, 4, 5 of them, what you do is now you need to get separate pieces of paper, blank paper. Just take a notebook pad or however, copy machine paper, whatever you want to do. And on the top of each blank piece of paper, you put the rebuttal you heard, just one rebuttal on the top of the paper.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's like, I don't want to do a lease option.
Okay.
That's the rebuttal. Okay. You would put that on the top of the piece of paper. Then what you would do is you would put some sort of an answer of how you would answer it. So you need to think about it, which, by the way, the definition of a script is a pre-organized set of words that you're going to use when you hear this question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So it's not just shooting from the hip. You're going to work out an answer that's plausible. I use the word persuasive, but it's more plausible to the seller.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why you're doing this is not to convince them or not to trick them to say yes. You're just trying to add another agreement to your overall deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you get enough agreements, they're going to say, I like you. I trust you.
Yeah.
I want to do business with you, because you've made enough agreements with them and you're on the same page with them, and they feel like you're going to take care of them because you went through the process with them.
And you handled all the little problems they were thinking in their head.
Right.
And I think it's actually very interesting that you say that they will like you. And it's not because you're being nice to them.
Or pretending.
Or being friendly or amusing or entertaining, which I could be and other people can be. But you're actually helping them with the little difficulties as they go. And if you help somebody with those little problems, well, what about this and about that? They can like you because you're helping them with stuff, and that's genuine.
Exactly.
That's real.
Ben Settle, everybody knows I follow Ben Settle, who's an amazing copywriter, and I buy all his stuff, and I've interviewed him, and I've done a lot of stuff with him, right? He says you don't, when you're selling or you're writing copy or you're trying to do something, and this is not so much selling, but it's apropos right now. He says that if you have a product you're trying to sell, you don't build a bridge from your product to the seller. To the buyer. You don't build a bridge from your product to the buyer.
Okay, from the
so
results
from me to you.
Yeah. Okay.
What I do is I go over to your side of the table and I build the bridge from you to my product. In other words, you go through the walk or the actions that they have to go through on how they're going to use my product.
So seeing it from their eyes,
right?
Which is much smarter.
So you're like building the bridge from their viewpoint to my product. So it's like getting them to where they need to go, right? Yeah. Another example of this would be undercover boss. How many times have you seen executives like Subway and these big bosses that think that they have they think their company's doing a certain thing until they actually go down into the kitchen where the guy's cutting up the vegetables in a Subway store in the back of some shopping mall, and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea that this was happening.
Yeah, this whole fire removed from the early days when it was small.
Right.
Yeah,
and he expanded and lost touch with reality. My final example is this. Our government, the Senate and the House, they don't live like normal people. They have gated communities. They have guards. They have money. They have They don't go to the grocery store and get a bottle of Snapple.
Nope.
They don't go to the cigar shop and smoke. They don't do things like that. You know, they live a very unsheltered, a very sheltered, unpersonable life. Yeah. So they don't know what a normal person. They don't know what it's like to sit in traffic on the highway because they don't do that. They take a helicopter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's what happens, right? So what we're talking about here is when you, just what you're saying, building trust is because you're on the other side of the table coming through the deal with them as if it was you and your wife or you and your family going through that deal, right?
So you really got to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
And walk.
And you say it, and I repeat it because I know as the rookie, quasi-rookie here, that we start into this business because we think, I'm going to make some money. Like it's a job, but it's not a job. It's something that you have to work with people.
Right.
So it's a little different. You have to be respectful of the other guy.
You can do that. You could go on the MLS and you could just get a chunk of dough from somebody and go buy a house and make it very unpersonable and very cold, and you could do that.
Yeah, but you have people
that's
doing
the
things.
Hardest
but
way.
You have people in between doing those things for you.
But
Someone else is doing
also the
that.
hardest way, and you're giving away a lot of your profits.
Yeah, because you have people doing it for you.
But now you got to get bank qualified. Now you got to get your letter, your proof of funds. Now you got to hire contractors.
Lawyer, the realtor, the bank. There's all these things in between.
You got to be the smartest guy in the room to be able to pull that deal off. And most new investors are not that way until they experience a few deals. We're talking about in the pretty house business where you're actually going to get a house for $100 deposit.
Right.
Okay. Let's go back to the rebuttal. So now, once you have it on the top, you have each question or each rebuttal on the top of the piece of paper. You write your convincing answer or your answer that would be plausible.
Yeah.
Or persuasive. Now, my point is that persuasive doesn't mean that you're going to convince them or close them. It just means that you're going to get one more agreement handled. The purpose of handling objection, stalls, and resistance or rebuttals is not to close someone. The purpose is to keep the conversation open and going so you can get more agreements. And I will tell you, if you do what I'm explaining to you, which is so hard for me to explain, and maybe this is not what you consider a hot topic, but I'm telling you this is the meat and potatoes of the industry. Okay. When you do this, and I've tested this so much, Peter, I can tell you story after story after story. If you do this correctly, the person will close themselves and ask you for the close. You don't even have to do it yourself. Yeah. If you do this correctly, they'll walk themselves right into doing a deal with you.
No, I've heard the best.
Or deciding, no, this isn't for me, and you're good.
Yeah. I've heard the best way, the absolute best way to sell somebody is just keep working with them and enlightening them and answering the questions and really trying to find out what they want and answer every question possible from the viewpoint of what they want. If it gets them closer to what they want, they will say, I want to do it. They will say it. Because you can't break someone's arm to do this stuff. It doesn't work.
That's right.
They have courts, they have lawyers, they have police.
Totally.
They have to like them. So you have to think of that.
So once you have this rebuttal on the top of the paper, and then you answer it the way you feel like it should be answered, you should then go to maybe a RIA or I mean, I don't want too much of this, but you can send me a support ticket and ask me how I would answer it. I'll go to some place, like, there's a lot of books written about it. Like Ron LeGrand's got books. The Wolfs, Brian and Lynette Wolf have a lot of this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of books on this stuff that you can do. Go find somebody that would answer that question that's been successful.
Yeah.
So you get a professional to answer the question the way they would answer it. So now you take your answer and their answer and you blend it together and make your own natural answer. So the next time you hear, I don't want to do a lease option, you'll at least have some empathetic way of communicating to them that will not piss them off or end the communication. Because that's normally what happens. The seller will say something and you don't know what to say. You'll make something up on the fly. It won't go so well. You'll get in deeper. Right? And you'll never pull back.
And now you get nervous.
Right. Now you get nervous. Or, more importantly, what will happen is they'll realize you're bullshitting them and they'll make a decision. I'm not doing this. Okay? Because it wasn't smooth. And it was too premature in the conversation for them to make that decision. And now you spend the rest of the time with them on defense instead of offense because you didn't handle the question correctly.
Yep.
So it's all about answering their questions and keeping those agreements going until they get to the satiated feeling of, I want to do this deal. And I like this guy or this girl.
Question. What do you do when you really don't have an answer?
So when you don't have an answer, you say, I don't have an answer. Let me go find it out. I have a mentor, which would be me. Send me a support ticket, or I'm going to go talk to my lawyer, or I'm going to go to the tax office, or I'm going to go find out, and I'm going to come back and give you an answer.
Okay.
Or, in any case, and I talk about this all the time, depending on where you are in the cycle, you say, well, I don't have an answer for that. Let me ask you a question. What would have to happen for me to buy your house today?
Oh, default.
Yeah. So you can always give that answer, that question anywhere you go. Okay?
Okay.
So does this make sense? So once you have your persuasive answers, you'll feel better. You'll feel much calmer, and you won't be nervous because and don't go study these. Don't go spend 4 weeks studying these. Just talk to some people. And just start asking questions, and know that it's going to be, several communication cycles before you actually figure out what your playbook is until you get your 12 or 18.
Yeah.
Right.
You just get better at it the more you do it.
Right.
But I like the backup. If you don't have an answer, you should tell them.
Right.
That's how you really should do things, and that you'll find out.
Right.
It's very honest, and I think they'll appreciate that more.
Right. So before I move on, I just want to make sure that I clear up the word persuasive.
Sure.
Because that's like a button. That's like, anybody that doesn't like sales, it just means there was a bad salesman that robbed them, and that's not sales. That's criminal.
Right.
Okay,
I also have my buyer's opinion, because you're a good salesman. I'm the buyer guy more than the salesman guy. That I think people give in too.
Right.
Just because I didn't really want it, but well, then don't.
Right.
So don't be a wuss and give in. Then you'll feel bad because you gave in. That's just my 2 cents. Besides what you just said, between the two of those, you're in trouble.
That's right. So just to reiterate, you're not trying to trick the seller. You're never trying to trick the seller, especially if you're doing something where you're going to make monthly payments, because it's going to come back and haunt you. Okay. Or try to sell them any kind of snake oil. You're not trying to do that. I mean, you're honestly going to have it's like you're creating a partnership with this person. And there's been deals, and this. It's like, I'm not doing that deal. How come? Because I don't like the guy.
No, it's like,
Yeah.
Nope.
Right. So this rebuttal handling is just so you can, like I said, keep the seller talking.
Right.
Right. And agreeing with things, which means the seller will continue to like you and want to keep talking to you. So a good gauge of that is if they're trying to, what I call blow, like leave quickly.
Oh.
I got to go. I have an appointment. Oh, I forgot. I have to be with my wife. Or they look at their phone. When they start giving you the telltales, which we talked about some time ago, the telltales, right, of trying to escape the conversation, you went off the rails somewhere.
Yep.
You need to back up and fix that. Is there something I said that you didn't agree with? Is a good way to do that. Is there something you're uncomfortable with?
Yep.
Did you not like my offer? What would I have to do to buy your house today?
Is it okay to tell them, gee, I think I'm not sure what's happening. I feel I'm losing you here.
Absolutely. I've done that.
Yeah, because one thing I learned from you years ago on the phone when in person when you're talking to somebody, as you get lost, the first thing to do is just keep talking.
Right.
And you don't have to have the right answer. Just ask a question if you don't know what's going on. And the most obvious question is, what's on your mind?
Right.
Like this is happening. I don't know what to do. Well, do that. Like, I think I'm losing you. Did I say something wrong, or what happened? Just say it.
Right.
They'll tell you. And if it's bad, it's bad, and you go home. But you might be able to clear it up.
And you should learn something from that.
Yeah.
Like what you said, what you said may not be the right thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've talked about this on the podcast. You should record everything so you can hear yourself talking. Right. All right. Now this walks us right into the second portion of what I was talking about, which is the 5 steps.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to give them to you, and we're going to talk about them a little bit, and then we're going to get out of here.
Right.
Okay. So the steps are, number 1, you need to contact the new seller.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to clear up contact. Contact doesn't mean you left them a voice message.
Mm-hmm.
Contact doesn't mean you sent them a text or an email.
Mm-hmm.
Contact to me means that you have a two-way communication.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Pete, how are you today?
I can't talk right now.
See what I mean? At least it's a two-way conversation. Or I say, hey, Pete, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
That's a two-way communication. I got an answer. Going back to the original part, I got an acknowledgement. That's a contact.
Right.
Right? Do you have a house for sale?
Mm-hmm.
See? So,
you have a couple minutes to talk.
That's right.
So they're attentive and not like
that's right.
wrong time to talk. Don't do it.
Them, yeah. So contact means that the person is willing to communicate to you about this house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then number 2 is pre-qualifying the seller. Okay. So what you're really trying to do is you're trying to find out if they're interested. This is not like, are they pre-qualified with the numbers, which is where I have a lot of trouble with my coaching clients, because I started off in the beginning by saying the most important part of this podcast is you got to deal with the human side of the offer. So when I say, are they pre-qualified, you're going to do a prospect suspect form, or you're going to do one of my scripts, and it's going to give you numbers. Mm-hmm. Math is math, God damn it. Just put it on a calculator, and it does what it does. Mm-hmm. But the math does not make a deal. The deal structure does not make the deal. It's the human side of the conversation that makes the deal. Mm-hmm. So when I say, are they pre-qualified, are they interested in talking about making monthly payments until I could pay you off? Mm-hmm. That's a pre-qualification. Or if you're not willing to do so let's just role play this quickly, okay?
Sure.
So I say to you, Peter, so I'm an investor, and I'd like to buy a property in your neighborhood because I like those houses. So would you be willing to have me come out and talk to you about making payments monthly? You don't have to be a landlord. I'll be the landlord until I can get you paid off. Is that something we can talk about? And I want you to make a decision now. I just want to know if you'd be interested in it.
Well, if the numbers were not too bad, I guess so.
Yeah, so often what happens is the numbers are higher because we're going to pay you on time.
Oh, you give me more?
Usually.
Oh.
See,
okay.
I just pre-qualified him. Or you can go the other way. Yeah. Peter, I'd like to come out and talk to you about your house because I'd like to buy in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I just want to make sure that you know when I come out, and I'm doing it different so you can hear different ways.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that when I come out there, you understand we're going to talk about me making monthly payments until I could pay you off. Mm. Is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, could be. No? Well...
No, so let's do it the other way. Yeah,
I'm the other way.
Yeah, so
okay.
Do it the other way. So
yeah.
So Peter, I want to come out.
Else.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Peter, I want to come out and I want to look at the house because I like that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about me making monthly payments until I could pay you off. Now I'm not expecting you to make that decision right now, but I'd like to at least talk about it once I see the house.
Oh no, I don't think we want to do monthly. No, I wouldn't take monthly payments for my house. No.
Okay.
No.
So would you be willing to take a discount on the house if I give you all cash? I mean, it'd be a pretty significant discount. Well,
I think my house is worth something, so I wouldn't take too low, but I know I have to do some if it's straight to me and you cash, yeah, some discount.
Yeah, I'm not talking about a 5% discount. I'm talking about probably 30 or 40% discount.
Maybe.
Okay. So you're saying that if I don't pay you all cash, you won't be able to sell me the house?
No, not if it's too discounted. No.
Okay.
No.
See, so I just pre-qualified him on what his willingness is. I never used the number.
Right.
I talked about a 30 or 40% discount, and you answered me with yes, I'd be considered. So if you said yes, I'd be interested in that, I would go.
Yeah.
But I just put that other question in because I want you to understand what I would do. Okay. But the point is that I tested. It's what we used to call in the car business, taking your temperature.
Sure.
Right. So it's a litmus test on where you're at. right? Because too often I would think that I had a motivated seller, and I get out there and I look at the house. I spend a half an hour looking at the house, and we get to the kitchen, and it's like, okay, I want to talk about payments. Oh, I'm not going to take payments. And you just spend a half an hour going out there.
Yeah.
You know, you've already got an hour and a half into this deal, and you leave there pissed off because it's like, I should have.
Right.
You'll do that. Everybody that's listening will do that. Until that happens, you won't understand what I'm saying right now, how important it is. Until that happens. Until you take the afternoon off from work, or get a babysitter, or change an appointment, and get out there, and you're there like literally 5 minutes.
Just to waste your own time.
Yeah. You know, until that happens, you're not going to think this step is important. So one is contact a new seller, which is two-way communication. Two is pre-qualifying the seller, right? This is the process you're going to go through.
And you're not making offers on the phone.
No.
You're just getting ballparkish.
Right. Okay. Now, and we have this new internship that I've been doing where we do make offers without looking at the house. That is a new way, but it still goes through this process. Okay. The next one, which is number 3, is presenting the offer. Okay. Now, I don't mean the numbers. I'm talking about how do the monthly payments work and when will you pay me off? Because if you think about this, the thing that I talk about all the time, there's 4 things a good investor needs to know when they're talking to somebody. They need to work on price. They need to work on the payments, the amount of the payments.
Right.
They need to work on how long they can get the payments for, and if the seller brings it up, work on the deposit. So that's the presentation part. I'm still not making my offer. I'm still gathering data.
So when you say make the offer, how far are you going at this point?
You're just getting the data, right? So what's the lowest you will sell for? What's the lowest payment you will take? And what's the longest you will let me pay you monthly?
Okay.
I'm not making any decisions yet. I'm still trying to figure it out. That's the presentation part.
When you do the final numbers. But at this point, you're just trying to gauge what's available.
The next step is step number 4. You close. That's when you say, I will give you $180,000, $1,300 a month for 4 years.
Okay.
That's the offer. But you had to do all these other steps before you do that. And this is only if you're going to do pretty houses. And honest to God, it doesn't need to be this difficult. I'm just breaking it down because of all the feedback I get. And I hear my coaching clients like really struggling with this. So I'm breaking it down. So it sounds like it's a lot more than what it really is.
No, it's okay.
But this happens fluently. This can happen like in 5 minutes.
No, it's okay because when you don't do that, it looks like one lump thing.
Right.
And nothing is one lump thing. Look at a car. Look at an engine. Look at anything. It's not a body.
So I'm going off script here. Okay. So here's the point that I want to make. Really pound in hard. Big sledgehammer. Okay. You're going to contact somebody. You're going to pre-qualify them. You're going to present to them. You're going to close them. Which, by the way, step 5 is you're going to follow up with whatever you promised. So it could be, I'm going to go check the taxes and call you tomorrow. It could be, I need to do my comps. I'll call you tomorrow. It could be, I'm coming back with documents. It could be, here's the document, sign here. Okay, it could be any one of those things. The point that I'm making here is that, this is, I don't even know how to emphasize this enough. Every offer you make, you go through this exact same thing. So if you're making a slot deal, you go through these 5 steps. Start, change, stop. You make sure that you get the agreement that he's listening, he's contacting. You make sure that he's pre-qualified, that he's going to take monthly payments. You make sure that you go through the steps of how it's going to work. In the presentation, who's going to pay for maintenance? Who's going to do landlording? How much you're going to pay, annually. I mean, how much you're going to pay for the house, how much you're going to make for payments. There's a lot of stuff to go through there. There isn't a lot of stuff if you just stick to these formulas, but the conversations are constructed now, and they're going to say, you must have been doing this for a long time. You really know what you're talking about.
And we've heard that with newer students. Because there's an actual sequence. And everyone wants to get to the climax, but take it easy.
Okay, now let's flip the switch. Guy says, I don't want to do that. I want to do a cash deal. You go back through these 5 steps and you do it again on the Mayo formula.
Oh, okay.
Start, change, stop. So you go through the context. So now you got to contact them on, okay, so now we're going to talk about a cash offer.
Right.
Right? Okay, so are you willing? You pre-qualify them. You know I'm only going to give you like 100, you're going to take a deep discount. Mm-hmm. Okay, then you go through the presentation. Okay, here's what the numbers. And what I do, and if you notice this, is I don't give them a whole number. Like my number is going to start with like an 8. Mm-hmm. So it's like 80 grand.
Yeah, he's thinking 89, you're thinking 81.
Right. And that's all stuff we talked about before. So this is way too sophisticated for a podcast. And I don't expect you to know that. I just want you to understand the concept. Mm-hmm. And once you do this a few times, honestly, what I'm talking about, it's a lot easier than when I'm explaining it. Yeah. It's so much easier. I just want you to get the concept now. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I don't want to spend the rest of the show talking about these 5 steps because we got to get out of here. So here's my point. Mm-hmm. Okay. Every one of the 5 steps are a complete cycle of action. That's what I just told you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Each has a start, change, and stop to it. So when you're doing contact, it's got to start, change, and stop. Mm-hmm. The way you know whether you have done that is whether they've acknowledged you and completely understood what you plan on doing. Mm-hmm. You've described your mental image picture to them so they know what the target is when they hit it. Okay? I'm only going to take 2 minutes of your time. Good. Here's what I want you to know. Will you be willing to sell me the house on monthly payments until I can pay you off? No. That's it. They said no. Okay. Are you willing to take a deep discount? I don't know. What does that mean? See what I mean? So you have to be careful when you ask the question because it's like, okay, so would you be willing to take a deep discount, like low 100s? Right? So I didn't give them a number, but I gave them a ballpark, and they'd be like, oh, no, I wouldn't do that because the house is $200,000. Which, by the way, my rule of thumb is when I do a Mayo formula, I don't even do the formula much anymore. The maximum allowable offer formula Ron LeGrand teaches. Mm-hmm. I just do about 50% of whatever they're asking.
For a house that needs renovation?
Yeah, so it's $100,000. I start off with, it's about $50,000. So I might start off with $95,000, might start off with $105,000, but it's about 50%.
Yeah.
Once I get closer and I start doing my numbers, I'll give them exact numbers. But I'm not doing my numbers and my formula and wasting my time until at least I know they're willing to listen to it. I'm not going to spend, a half an hour or 20 minutes doing comps and doing I'm not going to do all of that until I know they're willing to do that. They need to prove to me my time is worth it to them.
Right.
And you should be the same way. That's the reluctant buyer in me. Mm-hmm. Right? So they have to figure that out.
Yeah, you kind of have to have a viewpoint that they need you as much or more than you need them.
Right.
And you're only doing this on a house that isn't pretty. Because if it's pretty, you don't do any of that. Yeah, and if it's not pretty, it's going to need a bunch of work. If it's not pretty, it's not pretty. Right. Whether it's a slightly bad kitchen or a terribly bad kitchen, a new kitchen is a new kitchen.
That's right. Yeah. So to be clear, when you're doing step 1, contacting the seller, you need to be clear here, right? And the way the way you do it is the way we just talked about. Mm-hmm. And this is what I promised you in the beginning of the podcast is that, you're going to take the fear out of it because if you do it this way, it's like an investigation.
Yeah.
Right? And you're not going to arrest somebody until you know you have all the evidence. It's exactly that way.
And I watch you in houses. You don't always know where you're going, but you don't care because you can figure it out, work it through, and just keep talking to the person. Then you go, oh, all of a sudden, bing, you get an idea. It could be an hour into it. It's okay. You don't have to have it figured out at the beginning.
That's right.
Just keep talking. It'll come to you.
And if they're not patient enough to do that, then they're a borderline suspect anyways.
Yeah.
Right?
And you just learn something, go practice some more.
Right. Last thing is, and then we're going to get out of here, there's 2 parts of every deal. Okay? And I've already talked about this. There's the math and the money, and then there's the human side, the emotional side. Mm-hmm. Every deal has that, and don't ignore that. So if you're a big, brave, bad, mean old investor, like you got pretty thick skin, and have no trouble kicking in the front door of the house and give them the number and then ask them to take it or leave it, well, you need to start buying ugly houses, and you need to start dealing with the banker and the lawyers. All right?
Yeah, have that fun.
Yeah, And bankers, and the reason why you could do that is because you never see the banker. I mean, how many REO properties have I bought? I've never seen the person I'm buying the house from.
No, it's just an annoying text or email that comes back.
It's always somebody that's representing them, the lawyer and the attorney. So they're hiding in their ivory tower somewhere, thinking that their money is more valuable than your money. And we all know how I feel about that. And so it's set up that way because they are much like the Wizard of Oz. They're this little 3-foot cowardly guy that's got a big machine that they hide behind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but if you wanna cut out the middleman and talk to all the owners, the owners yourself, and be in the pretty business, then you have to listen to some of the things we're talking about. Now, again, I'm always nervous about these type of podcasts because what happens is they seem more complex than what they really are. Honestly, if you just listen to what I'm telling you, if you took some notes and you did a few things, then you can at least test what I'm telling you. I'm not telling you to believe me. Just go out there and try it.
If you just take some of these ideas and sit in front of somebody and talk with them, you'll be leaps and bounds ahead of just winging it.
So here's the point. If you actually do a little bit of this, you're going to find monster deals because not everybody does this, which is where I was talking about at the beginning of the show. If we were actually organized like the National Realtor Association, and we actually trained people, and there were, God bless you, and we actually had certifications like they did, and we actually had our own place to place deals. Like if you had a deal for sale like their MLS, it would be phenomenal because they would no longer have the monopoly they had. There would be competition. This is no different than Uber taking rides out of taxis. What they're really doing is they're taking the seller and the buyer and putting them together. Right?
Yeah.
It's no different than Airbnb. Amazon. I mean, the distribution of products is where the billionaires are being made today. It's not the products themselves, it's the distribution. So it's not the houses that are making the money, it's the distribution of the house. And that's what a realtor does, is they distribute it and they have it locked up. They're the only ones distributing these houses that are for sale. And if we actually came together and we started distributing them as well, it would change everything.
Yeah.
So
there'd be two games in town.
Yeah, right now, it would be like having, McDonald's and Burger King.
Yeah.
Or it would be like having
Lowe's and Home Depot.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that while it still is this way, if you do spend a little time, and I don't mean spending years and years and years, you spend your 5% of your time of education, like we talked about a couple podcasts ago, just humanizing your deals. And working on, because believe it or not, the investors that do best with me are the ones that humanize their deals. They aren't stuck on the offers. They know how to talk to people, and they just talk to them and make agreements. Yeah. And they just build the agreements, and they build trust and rapport. And when you do that, they'll let the seller will let you make mistakes. I can't tell you how many times I've made offers and then gone back and changed them later. I mean, not a shit ton, but definitely not. It's never not happened. You know what I mean? And if you have good rapport and they feel like you're doing, you're human about it and you're helping them build that bridge from them to you, then it's empathy. It's like putting yourself in their shoes and doing all that, right?
Yep.
So rapport building is emotional, right? So if you really think about this, to end off, now if you really think about this, right? Number 3, the presentation is, like I said, still no numbers. It's still that rapport building. And what you're doing is your presentation is not the numbers, but the way this play would play out. Right? So it's like you're bringing them to the end of the show. So your offer is a plot, right? Is like the plot of the movie. And then you're going to bring them to the end of the show and tell them how it ends. And then you're going to reverse engineer it and say, okay, here's how we do this, and here's how we do that, and here's how we do. And that's your presentation.
Yeah.
Right? And when you understand that, then you could be a little less bull in a china shop and you'll get more done, right? So what I'm trying to say here in a long-winded, droning way here is that almost always every person I've ever met and every book I've ever read, when somebody makes a decision, they almost always make it emotionally first. And then they back it up with logic.
Mm-hmm.
So in this particular case, when you're going through the 5 steps, you're working on the emotion. You're making that connection with that person. You're really caring about them and understanding what they want. And you're saying, yes, I can do that, or no, I can't. There are going to be deals where you're going to say, no, I can't do that, or I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah.
Or there's not enough money in it for me to do that. Mm-hmm. When you look at the formula, 2 ways to make money with real estate, it's buy low, sell high, which is equity, or cash flow. You need to measure that up against how much effort and resources are you going to use to keep that coming, right? To get that equity or to get that cash flow. And it just may not be worth it for you, which is why we have a slot deal where you just don't spend much time on it. You go in because they're getting all the equity. They're getting all the payments. There's no spread on any of that stuff. And you manufacture your own fee by getting a premium price, and you hit and run. It's a one-night stand.
Yep.
You're not staying in because you can't afford to. Because if you stay in that deal or you get wrapped up in that deal and you're constantly dealing with the deal and you're aggravated about it month after month, you're not going to go get new deals. You're not going to find that $50, $60, $80, $100,000 deal. You're not going to find it because you're going to be wrapped up in this noisy deal, right? This deal that's creating all this noise. Okay, so I think that's it. I have on the notes here, but I'm not going to read them. So basically, if you have enough equity spread and you have enough payment spread, then just talk to the person. You'll know that right away. If you ask the right questions up front, you got enough equity spread, you got enough. Don't worry about what deal structure you're going to give them. Don't worry about how it's going to happen. I've never done 2 deals exactly the same anyways. Just go in and humanize it. Like, go in and talk to them and find out what their problems are, find out what's going on in their life, and find out more information so that you don't have to be a bull in a china shop and say, I'll give you $130,000, $1,300 a month. That's not going to buy you a deal. You're trying to build a relationship, right? I wrote in the internship, I wish I had it right now, but it's a proposal. That's what it was. It's much like a wedding. There's legal. I forgot. I'll get it and read it. I have it in the internship, but it all starts with a proposal. It's like a legal contract, but it all starts with a proposal, right? And that's what you're doing is you're proposing to that person, hey, this is what I'm willing to do. But if you don't know what they're willing to let you do, then you're nowhere. I've been listening to recordings for a couple of my coaching clients, and it's like, I was like, I don't know if you listened to the coaching call on Monday night, but I never ever do this. I was yelling. I was pissed because this guy had all these calls he has me listening to, and he's completely wasting my time. You want to know why? Because I asked him. We listened to the call, and I said to him, okay, here's my question. What's their ruin? What's ruining them? What's their problem? What's causing them to do this deal?
Yep.
And, well, you know what? I don't want to talk to you anymore. If you don't know that, then why are you bothering me? Why are you trying to get me to coach you? Why are you wasting my time? If you can't know that, or if you don't know that, then you just wasted everybody on this call's time. Because that's the first thing you should know. What is their situation? And if you don't know that, then you're not going to buy houses. Or you're going to buy the low-hanging fruit houses, but they're not going to be them monster deals. People tell me all the time, oh, you make, it's because of you. No. I make my monster deals, and you watch me do it. I make my monster deals because I'm doing this stuff.
Yeah.
That's how I make them. I sit in houses that nobody else is making an offer on. I solve problems that nobody else know how to solve or even know they exist. Sometimes the seller doesn't even know they exist. The seller, the statement that I figured out, it took me a while to figure this statement out, but knowing, you don't know what you don't know. basically what that means is there's a future and you have no idea what's in that future. There are things in that future that you don't even know exists. And they're going to be problems for you, and you're completely unaware that they're coming your way. You know? It's kind of like the guy standing up in the front of the ship saying, "Iceberg ahead! Iceberg ahead!" And the captain never hears him.
Oops.
We call that the Titanic.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, how about all the people in our country that started on the East Coast or Missouri and made it to the West Coast in a covered wagon? They don't know what the heck's going to go on.
Right.
But they got in the wagon, they hit the horse, and they went anyway.
That's right.
And most of them made it, some of them.
Good. So the way I'm going to end this podcast is this way. Numbers last. Numbers last. Don't be a bull in a china shop, and start off with the numbers first. Numbers last. Be human. Communicate like nobody else. There's no other creature on this planet that could communicate like humans. So just use that tool and talk to people and help them. And don't pretend to be their friends, because a lot of people are pretenders. Don't be a movie star and act, don't go acting. Be sincere. Be truthful. And you will have everything you ever asked for, and then some, because you are the diamond they've been looking for. And because of that, you'll help them, and they'll let you make money, and you'll make some magnificent deals.
But you'll also feel good about what you did because you helped the other person.
Yeah. How do you think I've gone 18 years doing what I'm doing? And I'm guessing. I keep saying 16, 18 because I really need to count it and come up with that number. But I think it's, actually, I was thinking about it the other day. I think it's more like 19 years, but I got to do the math.
Okay.
I would really appreciate, I've gotten some, but not as much as I thought. I would like to get some reviews. I put a lot of heart. You do too. A lot of heart and concern in these podcasts. We've changed them since the beginning of the year. We've definitely got more profound. They're a little bit longer because that's what I was asked to do. I need feedback because I'm starting to think that maybe what we're doing may not be the right thing. So if I don't have feedback, then I think I'm doing the wrong thing. So go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top of the page, hit podcast, and on the right side, there's a link for iTunes. That's where I go. There's a few different platforms out there. What was that platform the other day, Em? Do you remember that we were looking at? That had a lot of hits on it. Yeah, I don't remember the name of it. It's a platform I never even heard of, but like a majority of our podcasts are listening to us on that.
Really?
So I need to go figure that out.
So if you're listening on the one we don't know, send us a support ticket.
Yeah, send us a support ticket. Yeah,
and tell us what it was.
So go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right hand side, you hit contact us, and that'll set us a support ticket. And also, if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, there's free stuff. There's a bunch of videos there on the deal structuring and all the free stuff. There's also a link there for courses, and there's a link there that says Proof It Works, which is the testimonials. If you would like to give us a testimonial, you can go to Proof It Works. You can type it, or you can actually put a video, and it goes right onto our webpage. So please do that, because I'd like to get some feedback, just like I'm telling you how I do with my sellers. I want to know what they need, what they want. I'm doing the same thing with you. I don't want to just keep making up podcasts. I want to know what's needed and wanted. What do you guys want to hear about? What problems are you encountering? What things do you feel like you need some advice on? And we'll make a podcast about it. Okay? So with that said, we're over and out. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.